Welcome to a special edition of So-and-So brought to you by Bernina, Made to Create. I'm Meg Goodman. While we were in New Orleans for Bernina University, our So-and-So team had the extraordinary opportunity to visit the Mardi Gras Museum of Costumes and Culture. What we expected to be a fascinating look at the artistry behind Mardi Gras quickly became something much more. Waiting to greet us was Carl Mack, artist, musician, storyteller, and founder of this remarkable museum. For decades, Carl has dedicated his life to celebrating and preserving the rich traditions of New Orleans, assembling an extraordinary collection of costumes while safeguarding the stories, history, and culture that give them meaning. As we spent time with Carl, it became clear that we weren't simply touring a museum. With warmth, humor, and remarkable generosity, Carl shared stories of costume design, music, carnival traditions, Mardi Gras history, the artistry behind spectacular creations, and the people who have devoted generations to keeping these traditions alive. Every answer led to another story, another piece of history, and another reason to appreciate the incredible culture that makes New Orleans unlike anywhere else in the world. This became much more than an interview. It became a conversation with someone who has spent more than 40 years living, creating, preserving, and sharing the traditions of Mardi Gras. Quite honestly, we could have listened to Carl for hours. So settle in and enjoy this special So-and-So takeover as Carl Mack takes us on a colorful journey through the history, artistry, music, costumes, and unforgettable traditions that define one of the world's most celebrated cultural events. This is a very special edition of So-and-So. We are in New Orleans, Louisiana, at the Mardi Gras Museum of Costumes and Culture with Carl Mack. Carl, welcome to So-and-So.
Thank you very much.
Carl created this amazing place. He's originally from Rochester, New York, came down here to New Orleans in 1983 and was known at the World's Fair in 1984 as the Xylophone Man. We'll get into that a little bit more. There is so much to talk about, and I'm just going to turn this over to Carl and let him tell so many stories to us. Carl, how did the museum first come together, and what inspired its creation?
Well, thank you very much for having me here and coming to visit us. I started out in New Orleans playing music, and I was the Xylophone Man. And I started booking other entertainers like stilt walkers, clowns, mimes, jugglers, face painters, balloon twisters, and they needed costumes. So I started making costumes and have for the past 40 years had seamstresses and people to help me with all that because I don't sew, but I know what we need and what looks we're going for. And so we've been working at that for many, many years. I've got thousands of costumes, probably the biggest collection in town. And I had it all in my production office for the entertainment company because we do a lot of business with the conferences and conventions. And costumes were so crammed on the racks that it would drive me crazy that you really couldn't see and appreciate the beauty of these costumes. And also, why do we have all this down here in New Orleans? It starts with Carnival, but it's in all aspects of the culture here. And so I decided to get rid of about half of the stuff and had a bunch of big sales and turned it into a museum. So now we are the Mardi Gras Museum of Costumes and Culture. And also Carl Mack Presents, the entertainment company. And people can come in and rent costumes as well, and we use the costumes to dress our performers.
You and I were talking before this, and you were saying that you don't sew the costumes, but you design them. Would you take us through, these are so incredibly elaborate. From start to finish, what does it take to make a Mardi Gras costume?
Well, that's a very good question, yes. So, New Orleans has Carnival, and we have Mardi Gras too. So during Carnival, you probably are going to be going to a number of parties. You might need to wear some costumes. And then the culmination on Mardi Gras has a lot of kings and queens and royalty. So we do make every year maybe one or two king or queen costumes. But as far as making costumes, most of what we do is by what we need. Like if Mary Kay Cosmetics is in town, and so we need to make pink stilt walking costumes and towering divas. And, it's the process that I usually use is knowing a variety of seamstresses and who would be best suited for this job. If it's spandex, we might call Sarah. And if it's something more burlesque style, I might call Kat. There's different people that we know. We used to have, before the pandemic, we had a big part of the space was used for sewing. And we had cutting tables and sergers and sewing machines and steamers. But things changed with the pandemic. A lot of the staff didn't come back. People wanted to work from home. So we just kind of rolled with that. And also after 40 years in the business, I don't have the need for a lot of new stuff all the time like we did in the beginning of the company. If somebody wanted to book cigarette girls, we had to make cigarette girl costumes. But now I've got 3 different sets of cigarette girl costumes and things like that. But so we mostly do it by need. I will sometimes sketch it out. We'll also, it's changed. We used to be able to drive around to Joann's and Hancock and go pick up fabric, but they're not here anymore. So there's Jefferson Variety and a couple other sources, but we'll often buy the standard in New Orleans. We use a lot of purple, green, and gold. So we'll usually buy a bolt of bridal satin, purple, green, and a gold one. Keep that on hand. Maybe some velveteens, things that we can use. So sketching, talking, searching the internet for reference materials. Like we've got an event coming up in a month where they want like a Roy Lichtenstein pop art, 5 models with polka dots on their face, all wearing polka dot dresses. And so some of that we'll make, but the world's changed, and a lot of it we can just go online and purchase as well.
Purple, green, and gold. What's the history of those colors? Why those?
Well, it started in 1872. The organization known as Rex, and Rex means king in Latin. Rex is the king of the carnival. That's the last parade of the season. He's the king of the carnival. And the Rex organization is a little bit different than other carnival organizations. It's actually called the School of Design. And it was started in 1871. A group of businessmen in New Orleans and entrepreneurs, they said, there already was the carnival and Mardi Gras. But the Krewe, that's spelled Krewe, Carnival Krewe, there was a few crews, the crew of Momus and the crew of Comus. They started in 1851. And so Rex came along and they said, you know what, let's make this for the families. Let's make it a daytime parade. And nobody had tried that yet. And they said, let's call him the King of Carnival. So that's how the Rex organization was started. And they hired the best artists in town to design these beautiful floats and beautiful costumes, beautiful invitations and posters, and they promoted the heck out of it. And that's why our carnival grew and grew, was because of Rex organization. Well, there was a visitor. His name was Alexis Romanoff, and he was on a world tour promoting goodwill with Russia, and the colors of his court was purple, green, and gold. So they decorated everything in purple, green, and gold. And I'll digress just for a second.
Sure.
So Alexis Romanoff went to St. Louis first in the fall of 1871, and he fell in love with a chanteuse at a vaudeville show. And her song that she sang was "If Ever I Cease to Love." That was her song. So the New Orleans people had good sense of humor. They got wind of this romance, and they secretly brought the young lady down to New Orleans. So there she was in Alexis Romanoff's court, everything decorated purple, green, and gold. And here was the young lady from St. Louis. And they took it a step further. They had every band learn "If Ever I Cease to Love" and play it when they passed the reviewing stand. And to this day, when the bands in the Rex Parade go past the reviewing stand, that's what they play, "If Ever I Cease to Love," and it's known as the anthem or the theme song to Mardi Gras. So purple stands for justice, green stands for faith, gold stands for power, and those colors were assigned not at the beginning, but over time. They also appear in biblical things too, purple, green, and gold. Purple is usually with Advent and so forth. Purple stands for justice, green stands for faith, and gold stands for power. And the city gets decked out in purple, green, and gold. We have, one of my contributions to the culture here was that in a lot of these conferences and conventions, they do little second line parades, and they have revelers, which are people, that's what we call them, and they're Mardi Gras revelers, and they're dressed up in costumes, and they're kind of showing people how to party, whatever. And I was always sending out revelers with these parades. And then one day I said, you know what? I want to design a whole look. I want all my revelers to be purple, green, and gold. And we created about a dozen purple, green, and gold costumes, stilt walkers, and everything. And that spawned all my competitors, of course. They all had to make purple, green, and gold. Now everybody expects when you hire revelers that they're going to be purple, green, and gold. But that I can claim that as the OG of entertainment and costumes down here.
You mentioned a second line parade. Would you tell us what that is?
Sure. So a second line is really the second half of the jazz funeral. And the jazz funeral is an African burial ritual that's in two parts. And the first line is the dirge. They usually play that song, Just a Closer Walk with Thee. That's the song they always play, carrying the body through the streets, weeping, wailing, mourning, crying into those handkerchiefs. That slow, sad first line, that's followed by your second line. Your second line is, I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away. They lift up the spirit of the person who's passed on, and they celebrate. And the umbrellas, it's hot here. People wear umbrellas also, or carry umbrellas all summer long. And the second half is now a thing itself, the second line. The second line, now, at that time of newly emancipated African Americans, New Orleans came up with a very interesting system called benevolent societies, or social aid and pleasure clubs. And so every neighborhood got these social aid and pleasure clubs, and they could help a family in a time of need. So they were especially influential in burial. If you couldn't afford to bury a loved one, you could turn to your social aid and pleasure club. They also could provide the hall for the repast. The repast is the dinner after the funeral. And New Orleans, when you bury somebody, this is you better clear your calendar, because you're going to the visitation, you're going to the service, and the service is 2 hours long. Then you're going to go to the second line, you're going to go to the cemetery, and you're going to go to the repast. And the repast can go on well into the evening and also into people's homes. And so these social aid and pleasure clubs, consequently, a lot of these second line parades coming from the funeral would go to the social aid and pleasure clubs. So over the last 100 years or more, they have evolved into these parading organizations. So there's like the original Big Seven Social Aid and Pleasure Club from the 7th Ward. The 9th Ward's second line, there's the Treme Sidewalk Steppers, 6th Ward Steppers. Every neighborhood has social aid and pleasure clubs. And the police have organized the calendar so that every Sunday, you always know that the 9th Ward second line is going to be on the Sunday before Thanksgiving. Mother's Day is original Big Seven Social Aid and Pleasure Club. They have this amazing parade. Now, when you go to watch a Social Aid and Pleasure Club second line parade, you don't stand on the sidelines and watch it. You are in it. It is a moving, dancing party. They may have 4 or 5 different brass bands. And I own the costumes over there. His name is Alan Francis, and he was going to be king of the original Big Seven Social Aid and Pleasure Club in 2015. And up to then, the kings and queens didn't do the really big collars, the Medici collars. They're called a Medici collar. There's those collars that we're so well known for in New Orleans. But Alan was going to be king, and he came to me. He said, Carl, I'm going to be king. I want you to make, I want it to be like Rex and Zulu, Social Aid and Pleasure Clubs, with the big collars. I said, Alan, I'm not the person to do it. I could do it. I've made a few, but go talk to the Colombo family, because they're the ones that actually make amazing back pieces for Zulu and these social and these big carnival clubs. So he was really the first one to really kick it up. He got floats. He got a court. He put a court together. And so after that, that started in 2015. Every organization saw that and started doing it. And there's now like Opulent Designs, wonderful designer here in New Orleans who makes these collars for the social aid and pleasure clubs. So yeah, that is a long answer to a simple question of what is a second line.
Everything has evolved, just making it bigger and better. The costumes, Carl, are so elaborate. How long does it take to put one of these together? And if you look at these, just the intricacy is amazing.
When you find out you're going to be royalty, you basically have a year to prepare.
Okay.
And it's very exciting to think that you're going to be king or queen. And people, it's a once in a lifetime for many people. And so, like Carnival happens usually early February, the dates change because of the moon. It's a lunar holiday. And so right after Mardi Gras, then usually the board of a crew or the officers or the captain will meet secretly with potential royalty for the next year, who's contributes. They might select them based on how involved they are with the organization or so forth. Can you afford it? Because your costume right there is $10,000. You're probably going to want a limousine to the ball that night, and a champagne and gifts for because they'll do call outs at the carnival ball and you have to give gifts to other royalty and so forth. So there's a lot of expense, but you find out you're going to be royalty, let's say in March or April, find a designer who's going to make your costume or sketch it, share your ideas. You want to be the every year, every crew, every social aid and pleasure club also changes their theme.
Every year?
Every year.
Okay.
So that means new costumes for royalty, new costumes for the court, new costumes for float riders. Now, if we start doing the math, a good parade, and we have 54 last year, there were 54 big parades that came down Canal Street.
Separate parades.
Separate parades.
Okay.
The crew of Athena, the crew of Cleopatra, the crew of Ocean, the crew of Muses, the crew of Bacchus, the crew of Orpheus. There's about 200 carnival clubs called a carnival crew. It's about 200, and last year 54 of them did big parades.
Wow. With
high school bands. So that's like at least 500 float riders on every one of those parades. And when you start doing the math, all the float riders need new costumes because they're expendable. They get dirty. They're called a crew costume. And every rider must be masked.
Why?
That's a city ordinance. It's
Okay.
a carryover from the days of secret societies.
Okay.
Before Facebook and everybody putting their business out there.
Sure.
We had secret societies. And so a carryover from that is that all the clubs are masked when they're riding on a carnival float. The court doesn't have to be. So if you go see a parade like the crew of Endymion and they have a dozen maids, the maid and her entourage that are riding on their float don't have to be masked, and the royalty doesn't have to be masked. But the typical float riders are. So when you start doing the math, there's over 200 carnival king royalty new every year, and their court needs to be made new. This is a huge industry of costume making down here. Like this red, white, and blue costume right here behind us. That she was a maid in the crew of Iris, which is the oldest of all the all-ladies crews. We have the crew of Femme Fatales, the crew of Muses, the crew of Iris was the oldest, and it's the largest. It's a fabulous parade on the Saturday before Fat Tuesday. And she was a maid. Now, the design on this is aeronautics, like it's got on the Medici collar, there's appliques of airplanes, right? Because she is a pilot. And the theme of their ball that year was all things of flight. So that's the theme of their ball. That's the theme of their parade as well. So in addition, I just stumbled over my words, but it reminded me that in addition to all those parades, every crew has a ball. they've started having carnival balls in December before carnival even starts because there's not enough venues to go around. And in 2027, it's a very short carnival season. Carnival is, Mardi Gras is going to be February 9th next year. So it's very quick.
Very quick. Now, you've used a couple terms that I want to make sure those joining us for this conversation know. First of all, you've talked about walking clubs, the aid and pleasure societies, and crews. Are those all different things?
Yes. So Carnival originally very segregated. So you had the European descended folks doing Carnival crews, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the African American neighborhoods were like, well, we got to have our carnival. And they also started masking as Indians. We haven't talked about that yet.
Mm-hmm.
They're called Mardi Gras Indians. So there's social aid and pleasure clubs, which is in many ways unrelated to Carnival.
Mm-hmm.
Social aid and pleasure clubs do their parades every Sunday afternoon
Mm-hmm.
throughout the whole year. And Carnival clubs do their parades just during Carnival. You know? So the two other big categories, walking clubs.
Mm-hmm.
And that really started about 15 years ago. There were so many ladies that wanted to join the crew of muses, but they were only allowing 1,100 ladies because they had 50 floats. That's about what they ride with. And so some of these ladies said, well, let's form a walking club. And the Pussyfoot Steppers were started. And so in between the floats, you have high school bands, then another float and some horse riders
Mm-hmm.
and another float. You know, it's like a variety show. And it's all tableau. It's all themed. You know, so every float furthers the tableau, furthers the theme.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of, we were talking about the crew of Iris, in the case of their parade in 2023 was All Things of Flight. So when you go to the ball, All Things of Flight is explained through the costumes that the maids are wearing. And then when you go to the parade, All Things of Flight, the theme goes through that whole parade, and everything they throw has the brand on it, you know, has that written on it, the doubloons and the beads and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that kind of thing going on. But now, so the walking club started with the Pussyfoot Steppers. And it's a lot of women organizations. There's camel toe steppers, organ grinders. They come up with some fun names. A couple male groups involved. There's the 610 Stompers. When you're a New Orleanian, you may do like 10 different things during Carnival. Like you might be a member of the crew of Iris and ride in their parade. But then you also on the side might be a member of the Organ Grinders Walking Club. So
Mm-hmm.
you also have to go march in the 5 or 6 parades that they got hired to march in because the mega crews will hire the walking clubs to appear in their parade because they're an attraction. People love to go see parades because they're variety shows in a sense, you know. And so I did touch on Mardi Gras Indians.
Yes.
So the early carnival, very segregated.
Mm-hmm.
So in the African American neighborhoods, the Mardi Gras, the folks were like, well, we need our carnival. And a big part of the African culture is paying respect to ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a number of people started masking as Indians, masking as Native American Indians with that kind of vibe to it. Today, the recognition of the ancestors is carried through a lot of storytelling in the beadwork.
Mm-hmm.
They'll show buffalo hunter rides, things like that. And a lot of the early Mardi Gras Indians were buffalo soldiers. They had been out west.
Mm-hmm.
And they came back with Indian suits. And then Carnival rolled around. And all those Europeans uptown were putting on costumes and hitting the streets. And some of these buffalo soldiers put on these Indian suits and hit the streets. And at first, there was a lot of, I remember when I came here 40 years ago, the Indians were kind of thought of as like kind of spooky and scary and stuff. But it's a lot more mainstream and appreciation of the culture now, especially the generational benefits that come from grandparents sitting around night after night after night sewing costumes with their grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
And because when you're a Mardi Gras Indian, you don't hire somebody to make your suit. You make it yourself.
Oh, interesting.
So there's
Okay.
a lot of men in this community who know how to sew and do beadwork, and it's surgical. I mean, it's like those little tiny beads and those
Yes.
tiny threads, and they. I've got 7 suits over there, and the beadwork, by far, those suits have the most labor in them than anything else in the collection, and they're the heaviest.
Mm-hmm.
A Mardi Gras Indian suit could weigh 200 pounds, and you're out there all day long on Fat Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all done in secrecy.
The sewing, the creation.
Sewing, yes,
okay.
that's all done in secrecy,
Mm-hmm.
and then you show out on Fat Tuesday, and they want to seek out other tribes to see who's got the prettiest suit.
Okay.
And so some of them nowadays ride U-Haul trucks because the downtown tribes want to go uptown and so forth. So they get around quite a bit on Fat Tuesday. You never know where you're going to find them.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the structure of the tribe. The spy boy is out in front looking for the gang in the next neighborhood. The spy boys meet. The wild man clears the sacred space where the chiefs can meet, and the chiefs can show off with how good is their songs, because at this point when they meet, there's a lot of music and slapping tambourines going on, and there's chanting, and it's a lot of improvisation in what they're saying, and they compete vocally like that, and also who's got the prettiest suit. And it used to be more or less almost gangs like meeting. You may have heard of Tootie Montana, and he was chief of chiefs, and he is the one who really changed that culture into needle and thread.
Okay.
And that's the we're going to beat you with a needle and thread. We're going to show up with the prettiest suit.
You mentioned also, you've talked about Carnival and Mardi Gras. What's the difference?
So Carnival, back in the 1500s, Pope Gregory created the Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar that we use. So he created it in this manner. There was 4 Sundays of Advent leading up to Christmas Day. And then right after Christmas Day, you've got the 12 days of Christmas. That's December 26, December 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, January 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. January 6th is the 12th night after Christmas. And 12th night represents that the kings in the Bible find the baby Jesus. And they find him on the 12th night after his birth. When they see the child, they have an epiphany. So it's called the Epiphany. It's always January 6th, and it's the first night of Carnival. Now, Carnival had already been going on. So when Pope Gregory created the Gregorian calendar, he was like, okay, well, they like that celebration. That's good for them in the middle of the winter, to gather around the campfire and party and stuff, because Carnival literally means, carne means flesh and meat. And val is like the verb to go, like in Italian, io vado, and je vais in French. So Carnival means farewell to the flesh. Meat was getting scarce, and they would finish eating the meat, and then they knew going into spring they had to fast because the meat wasn't available. So Pope Gregory, he like, okay, let's keep that farewell to the flesh. Let's keep the fasting. So he organized the Christian calendar. So 12th night all the way through the last day of Carnival is Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras translates. Mardi Gras is French. Mardi means Tuesday, and gras, like in grand and gross. Mardi Gras means Fat Tuesday. And then you have Fat Tuesday. It's the last day of the Carnival. It's the big blowout. And then the next day you repent. Some of those,
fast.
Yes, those ashes from the fire the night before, they're probably all over their hands, all over their face. So, that became a tradition of you wake up in the morning and you get your ashes.
Sure.
So, and then they fast. That was all part of already existing pagan life around the culture. So Easter was already happening as a celebration of fertility because things were starting to bloom, flowers. So that's why we have fertility symbols like chickies, bunnies, duckies, and flowers. But we also have the resurrection of Christ because Pope Gregory said, well, let's keep that celebration, that fertility celebration. So Easter is always the first Sunday after the first full moon after the vernal equinox. So the vernal equinox is always March 21st. And if you have a full moon soon after the vernal equinox, then you count back 45 days for Lent, and that'll take you to Ash Wednesday, and then the day before is your Fat Tuesday. So so Easter, Carnival, Mardi Gras is always 46 days before Easter. And if Easter doesn't happen, if you don't have a full moon after the first day of spring, if you don't have a full moon for almost a month, then Easter could actually happen in May. And you count back and you got a very late Mardi Gras.
It is amazing, the tradition on so many levels with this.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, we're going to ask you to walk us around the museum and talk about some of your favorite costumes, some that might be very historically significant. But before we do that, visitors to your museum, what should they know when they come here, and what's important for you to have them take away when they leave?
We try to give everybody who comes in the same good experience. I kind of call it a Mardi party. So from the minute they come in, it's really beautiful. I mean, the costumes are stunning. I've tried to create an exhibit to teach about Carnival and Mardi Gras and social aid and pleasure clubs. So there's representations, there's exhibits here of walking clubs and carnival clubs and Mardi Gras Indians and parade watchers and gay carnival. And then also we have a lot of social aid and pleasure clubs. And a highlight for the guest is the costume closet. So when they, after touring the exhibit, they find their way to the costume closet, and we dress them up in authentic Mardi Gras costumes, including the big Medici collars with all the feathers and so on. We put crowns on them, give them a scepter, let them get nice pictures. We have a throne. They get their pictures, and once they get dressed up, we blow the whistle, like they do with the second line parade, and the Grand Marshal blows the whistle, and Alan up at the front desk, he hears that, and he puts the marching music on, Saints Go Marching In, and cranks it up, and we give them umbrellas and second line handkerchiefs and parade them through the museum. And then, of course, people, after that, they make their way to the warehouse, which is always kind of overwhelming just how many costumes we have. And we have a party room here, too, if anybody wants to have special events and so forth.
And this is your personal collection, everything here?
Yes, it is.
Carl, we're going to ask you to take us on a tour and talk about some of your favorite costumes here.
Let's do it.
As an extra bonus for so-and-so, Carl is going to walk us through this incredible museum, talk about some of his favorite costumes, some that are most meaningful to him and why, and some of the historical things that we see on exhibit here. So I'm going to turn this over to Carl.
Thank you very much. So I've been a member of a number of organizations. I started a crew called the Krewe of Radical Fairies. I started that in 1990. I had the first 3 balls in my home in the Faubourg Marigny. And then a while later, I joined the Mystic Krewe of Satyricon. This is part of the gay carnival culture here in New Orleans. And the Mystic Krewe of Satyricon, as its name implies, is a satirical organization. And so every year we would, in our way, poke fun at different themes. So 2016, our theme was the Bal des Beaux-Arts, the Ball of the Beautiful Arts. So somebody in the ball lampooned Andy Warhol, and he had dancing Marilyn Monroes. And somebody else did Bob Ross, and he had the big afro. His Medici collar was a paint palette, and he had girls with big paint brushes dancing and stuff. Because of the gay carnival culture here, they don't have parades, but they have balls, and they're big. It's a big attraction. Straight, gay, whatever, come to see it. They sell out these Broadway shows. They basically kind of work towards that goal all year. So they asked me to be queen. I had been queen in 2007, but when you only have about 15 members, if you stick around long enough, chances are you're going to be royalty again. So I was going to do something funny because I like doing funny stuff. I was going to make the biggest hoop skirt that you could imagine. And since I work in entertainment, I know all the little people in town. And I was going to have little people popping out under my skirt and stuff like that, something I'd never seen in a ball before. And my friend Sammy, he said, Carl, save that for when you're not the queen. He said, keep it sophisticated. I said, you know what? I said you're right. So I picked the artist Erte, and his beautiful drawing called Symphony in Black. So that's what we designed the ball on. Those of you who can't see it, the Symphony in Black by Erte she's very slender, and it's very Art Deco, and she's got a huge mink stole that kind of swirls around. It's in black and gray, and on the end of her leash, she's got a dog. The dog is a greyhound, very stylized in Art Deco style. So one day I was out, one of the great things about Mardi Gras is that it comes right after Christmas. So here I was, like in December, looking at Christmas ornaments at the our home shop, and I spotted it. There she was, my greyhound dog, a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer yard ornament all in silver glitter. So I snatched up that yard ornament, that silver sequin, changed the neck a little bit, made it a big collar, and in New Orleans, the professional way to make a Medici collar, that's your big collar you wear when you're royalty, is wire work. There's a number of people here, they know how to weld, and so this is professionally made. It's all done out of wire. The harness is on your back, and then it goes over your shoulders and under your arms, and it locks behind you. That's how these Medici collars work. If you make them out of plywood or foam core, they're very flat and unattractive. And so then we made the big stylized mink stole out of wire work, wrapped in boa with silver sparkles. And the dress is an Art Deco style dress, with just silver sequins. We made a beautiful hat in Art Deco style. And I wore that as queen. Now, in New Orleans, Carnival and Mardi Gras, there is only one costume contest. This is not like Halloween where there's costume contests all over town. And it's called the Bourbon Street Awards. It happens on Bourbon Street on Fat Tuesday at 12 noon. And people get up, there's categories, best of show, best group, and so forth. And in 2016, I won second place, best of show. I lost to a tarantula. Well, it was a beautiful tarantula. And then the guy had the nerve to say, hey, would you like my costume for your museum? I'm like, get that thing away from me. Okay. So, but I also am captain of a carnival organization. My friend Marshall Harris and I, we started Krewe of Stars. Now, we don't do a parade, but we do a fun dinner dance honoring local celebrities. Here's the costumes we made for Al Carnival Time Johnson. He's a well-loved gentleman in this town here. He's 86 years old now. Al Carnival Time Johnson, he wrote the big hit song Carnival Time. There's a lot of music in New Orleans all about Mardi Gras and Carnival. And our queen that year, we made her costume. That's Irma Thomas, Grammy Award-winning singer. Now, earlier you were asking about how long does it take to make a costume. Can I tell you a story that's going to take about 3 minutes? So I had this friend. She was working on getting I guess she had a green card or something. Anyways, she wanted to come to America, and one day she called me up. She said, I finally got my car. I can live in America now. Do you have an apartment for rent? I said, well, actually, yes, I do. I said, and you're a costume maker. I said, so let's trade. I said, I'll give you 6 months for free. I need a great costume for Al. I need a great costume for Irma. And I didn't really check on the progress, and the ball was on Friday night, and Irma called me up on Monday afternoon. She said, Carl, I can't wear this. She was over at the studio of the lady who had made it. She said, I can't wear this. She said, but I'm not worried about it. I can come down to your shop. You got better stuff down at your shop. So I said, okay. So I went, and I was like, okay, let's see what you got. And I said, oh, yeah, that is not going to work because it was too much emphasis on close-up detail and not big enough, because when you're a king or queen of a carnival ball, you're in a theater of 1,000 people. So you need to sparkle and glitter, and the stuff has to be over-exaggerated, So I said, but that's no problem. I said, I'll meet you tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, ball's Friday night. I said, I'll meet you tomorrow, we'll go shopping. So we went, and we put both of these costumes together in 1 week. I grabbed an old tunic for Al that was already made, and I bought like a bolt of this. It's like got appliques already built into a sheer material, so we were able to just wrap everything in it. So we took the dress that had already been made, we wrapped it in this overlay of sheer, and then I went and I bought a whole bunch of appliques, because a big way of doing carnival costumes in New Orleans, they're made out of normal material like bridal satin, but what jazzes it up in a quick, easy way, we're a little bit, I know this is about sewing, but we're a little bit hot glue crazy down here in New Orleans. So you can get appliques and just hot glue them, hot glue them, hot glue them. The other museums in town, like the Louisiana State Museum, they will not take glued costumes. The curator over there, he'll send them over to me. But Carl will, he'll take your costumes. But I actually, you know what? She sewed these on. Okay, that's good. So, but that's a great way. Just using appliques if you want to know how to make a good Louisiana, New Orleans looking costume. Bridal satin and lots of appliques will jazz it up. And then I had this gauze material. We made these big trains because both of these folks are in their 80s. They don't want to be dragging along 20 foot of velvet wrapped in fur, so we kept things very light. This is an organza. We made their trains out of organza and just trimmed it. And then we made their Medici collar. I already had the wire work. Those were blue Medici collars. I ripped them all down, covered them in gold, again with the overlay, and off they went on Friday night. So both of these costumes basically were made. We shopped on Tuesday. We got to work on Wednesday, Thursday. They wore them on Friday night. It was a bit of a rush. I've got costumes here from local celebrities, like there's Chris Owens. We got Trombone Shorty's suit over here. I got one from Big Frida, and I just texted Big Frida the other day. I said, I need a new costume, because he's wearing these big, fabulous, ruffled costumes when he does his shows. And one of my favorite areas, we were talking about social aid and pleasure clubs, just to give you an idea of the scale of how people are working in this city. Now, we were talking about that there are hundreds of organizations. So in this little rotunda area here, this is 3 years of royalty from one relatively small organization called the Treme Sidewalk Steppers Social Aid and Pleasure Club. King Hollis wore this in 2017. Queen Bianca wore this in 2017. They were the royalty, so they get the Medici collar, they get the train. They're royalty for the year, but they come back in 2018. These are their returning royalty costumes, done in the same style, but without the Medici collars and the trains, because they passed the torch in 2018 to Trombone Shorty, Troy Andrews, a local entertainer that takes New Orleans music all over the world. I've known Troy since he was a little kid. There's a number of family dynasties of musicians in New Orleans. There's the Batiste family with John Batiste from the Stephen Colbert Show. There's the Marcellus family with Wynton Marcellus, just retired from Lincoln Center after 30 years. And there's the Andrews clan, they call them, with Troy Andrews, James Andrews, Glenn Andrews, a very musical family. And over here we have the 2019 royalty costumes, 25th anniversary. So here's 3 sets of costumes. Now, mind you, each one of these, here's a picture here of the king and the queen, and their court has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. There's about 40 people in their court, all wearing new costumes that year. And that's one organization. That's the Treme Sidewalk Steppers, Social Aid and Pleasure Club. There's a Social Aid and Pleasure Club every Sunday that's working on this scale. So that's like 50 sets of royalty just for social aid and pleasure clubs, and then you've got over 200 carnival clubs. There is a lot of costumes being made, and all these costumes in this area were made by the Colombo family. They do a great job with the Medici collars. So a Medici collar is named after the Medicis. The Medicis were a wealthy family. The Medicis were a wealthy family from Italy that liked to show off their wealth, and they were kind of like the Kardashians, I suppose. So the Medici collars, as you can see, that's what she was wearing. And that's why we call them, that's what everybody calls them here, a Medici collar. And the Mardi Gras Indians, by far these are the heaviest items in the collection and also the most laborious, because there are thousands of beads just in this one patch. You don't call it a costume, you call it a suit. And you don't hire somebody to make it, you make it yourself. Many patches make up a suit, and there are 4 main characters in every tribe. Every tribe's got a wild man. It's a male-dominated art form. Lots of men in the city sew, but when a lady's involved, they're always called the queen. We have a couple queen costumes here. Every tribe's got a spy boy. The spy boy looking for the gang in the next neighborhood. Every tribe's got a chief, and every tribe's got a flag boy. And here's a song for you about a flag boy. I bet everybody knows this song, but I bet you never knew that it's a Mardi Gras Indian song in Mardi Gras Indian language. So when I say hey now, you're going to echo by saying hey now. Let's try it. Hey now.
Hey now.
That's it. My flag boy and your flag boy sitting by the fire. My flag boy tells your flag boy he's gonna set your flag on fire. Talk about hey now.
Hey now.
Hey now.
Hey now.
Iko, I nay. Giacomo Fino, I nine a. Giacomo Finine. Talk about hey now.
Hey now.
Hey now.
Hey now.
Iko, I nay. Whoa, whoa. Giacomo Fino, I nine a. Giacomo Finine. Giacomo Finine. You all heard that song before, right? That is a Mardi Gras Indian song, recorded right here on North Rampart Street. Our address is 318 North Rampart. You go down to 840 North Rampart, and that is the site of Cosmo Matassa's recording studio, where that song was recorded by 3 young ladies who grew up in a Mardi Gras Indian household. They were the Dixie Cups. Arthella Neville, she's part of the Neville family. And then the Dixie Cups' other big hit record, recorded right here in the French Quarter. Going to the chapel and we're gonna get married. Yes. And New Orleans recorded the first rock and roll records right here on North Rampart Street, which is considered to be The Fat Man by Fats Domino and Tutti Frutti by Little Richard, all recorded right here in the French Quarter, world's first records, rock and roll records. And of course, we invented jazz, because jazz was dance music for the Jazzabelles. Those were the ladies of Storyville, our red light district. And jazz music was invented on Congo Square, which is floor blocks from our museum. And Congo Square is where it was a free day on Sundays, and all the different cultures would meet. African syncopated rhythms met Western woodwind, string, and brass instrument, and jazz was born. It was dance music for the Jazzabelles. We also invented poker and craps. We know how to have a good time in New Orleans.
Carl, this has been amazing. Now, before we close, you and I had talked before about how this came to be, your own personal story about that. Would you share that with us?
Sure. Over here we have a picture of myself playing my xylophone back in 1984 for the World's Fair. I was a creative type of person. My dad worked for IBM, and when I went to college, he said, always take a computer course. So even though I took art and I took music, studied percussion, but I also learned Fortran, COBOL, Pascal, Assembler, PL1, and all these computer languages. So then I went and worked in that field for about 5 years, and I saved my money. And when I reached my financial goal, I said to my boss, I said, I'm moving to New Orleans. He said, New Orleans, Louisiana? I said, I thought it was in Mississippi. He said, no, it's on the Mississippi River, but it's in Louisiana. I said, well, I don't know. I've never been further south than Pennsylvania. But I came down here to paint pictures and be an artist. And I painted a number of pictures, but I couldn't figure out how to sell them. But I noticed these guys playing music on the street, and people were throwing them money. So I went back to Rochester, New York, and got my xylophone, put it on bicycle wheels, because now the World's Fair was coming, and auditioned for the World's Fair and so forth, and ended up, after the fair closed, playing music on the French Quarter for many, many years, and started an entertainment company, and then the entertainers needed costumes, and I ended up with so many costumes that I started a museum. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Carl, this has just been amazing. The history, the intricacy, the different cultures that are a part of this. And we want to thank you so much for spending your time and giving us incredible information about Mardi Gras and Carnival and the costumes. And if people want to come visit you, and I can't imagine they wouldn't want to now after hearing all of this, how can they get a hold of you?
So you can go to our website is www.themardiggrasmuseum.com. You can find us there, Instagram, and so forth. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the culture. You know, it's New Orleans has contributed so much to the world, and certainly is the heart and soul of America. It's unique. We have our own food, we have our own culture, and we have our own costumes that go along with that culture.
So, and a final question for you. We'll call it a lagniappe, a little something extra. Is there any question I didn't ask you that you wish I had?
Oh, you didn't ask me to play my xylophone.
Would you play your xylophone?
Sure can.
That was beautiful. Carl, thank you.
Awesome.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What an incredible privilege it was for all of us at So-and-So to spend time with Carl Mack. Long after the interview concluded, we found ourselves reflecting not only on everything we learned, but on Carl himself, his enthusiasm, his extraordinary knowledge, and his generosity in what he shared with us. Carl doesn't simply collect costumes, he preserves stories. Through his museum and his decades of dedication to New Orleans, he ensures that the traditions of Mardi Gras continue to inspire future generations. Carl Mack, thank you for welcoming us into your world and for reminding us that behind every extraordinary costume is a story waiting to be told. And to you, sharing this story with us today, if your travels ever bring you to New Orleans, we wholeheartedly encourage you to visit the Mardi Gras Museum of Costumes and Culture and tell Carl hello from your So-and-So family. From all of us at So-and-So, thank you for joining us on this very special adventure. If you know someone you think has an outstanding story, a story that should be shared on this podcast, please drop me a note to meg@soandsopodcast.com or complete the form on our website. Be sure to subscribe to, review, and rate this podcast on your favorite platform, and visit our website, soandsopodcast.com, for more information about today's and all of our guests. That's SEWANDSOpodcast.com. And finally, I want to thank BERNINA for making this program possible. I'm Meg Goodman, and I look forward to you joining us next time on So-and-So.